we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to get through. Yeah, that's all what we're going through today. So we're not just here to hang out. We're here to work. We're here to learn. So I'm going to start off by introducing myself. If I don't know you, my name is Ben Fairfield. I'm Managing Director of Coaching for Success Magazine. And it is a pleasure to be here with my good friend, Mr. Don Hobbs. Don is the president of Success Enterprises. And together, we are going to bring you a power-packed, 28 minutes, or excuse me, 58 minutes.
58 minutes.
58 minutes of nothing but development, personal development. So what I'm going to encourage you to do before Don introduces himself, I'm going to encourage you to get out something to write on, something to write with. We're going to move fast. And my commitment to you on this call today is that when you lean into this call, you will leave better than you came, and you'll leave with practical tools and ideas, and you'll start on a journey towards breaking through the barriers that are keeping you stuck, keeping me stuck, keeping us all stuck. Don, tell us about yourself.
Hey, well, Ben, thanks. First of all, welcome to the call, everybody. And we're super happy that you're here. Ben, great to be working side by side with you. This guy is a coaching genius and a performance coach at a high level. Super excited to be part of this. For me, I started my career back in the early days when I would join Jim Rohn. Personal development has been a part of my life since then. And I got to work with a big gawky kid named Tony Robbins when I was 18 and he was 17. I've been in this space for a long time. And Ben, you know, what an honor to have come through so many different training programs that I've developed and companies I've worked around, and to be able to be here with Success, this 124-year iconic property that every time I mention the name, people go, oh yeah, I've been reading that magazine for years. And that iconic property that we have acquired and gotten a chance to steward. And yet we're in startup mode, and we're in a place where we're bringing lots of good stuff to the table. And today is one of those days. So I'm excited to be here with you. And we got some ground to cover. When you said 28 minutes, I freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do that? How are we going to do all that?
Just making sure just making sure you're awake, Don. You're back on Pacific time for a bit. So I'm just making sure you're still awake. I know it's early for you, but here's what I want everyone to do. Now, if you've not used Zoom before, I'm not sure how that's possible, but if you haven't used Zoom before, there's a chat feature. What I challenge you all to do is right now go into the chat feature and just type in what city you're located in. Where are you watching from today? So if you would go in, type in what city you're watching from today. Now, Don, as they're doing that, let's give some context as to the success wheel. So what I want you all to understand is this is not a new concept. However, this is a new version of a tool that's in line with the concept. Now, you've all probably heard of a life wheel, right? And this is a wonderful tool that we've used before, yet it was, in our opinion, lacking some components. And so, Don, you and I spent a lot of time as we're building, we built a coaching company, we're building coaching programs. We've been teaching like crazy across the country. Like as we're rolling all this out, we realized we needed a way to really take an assessment of where somebody's at. Because, you know, when you and I were teaching last week and we were on stage, we were talking about when you have a compass. I was teaching my boys how to use a compass. For a compass to work effectively, even if you're looking at a map, you have to first know where you're starting before you can successfully chart a course to where you choose to go. And so the success wheel is really that tool.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. And that's a great analogy, by the way. It's such a great analogy to think about, because we've all, I mean, we get in the car and it tells us we're heading northeast, and our GPS tells us to turn southwest. The good news is the car knows where it is, right? The GPS knows where it is. But a lot of times we don't have a clue where we are in relation to where we want to be. And the first thing we have to get clear about is, where are we? And, for us to define that today, we're going to go through this tool you mentioned. I've used the Wheel of Life. I can't even tell you how many years I've used some form of the Wheel of Life for 30 plus years. I don't know who created it. I don't know who invented it. I know that lots of companies and people talk about it. What we did in developing this was, Ben and I got a chance to really look and get deep in the conversation about what really makes up. I mean, like I know more than I knew when I first got around this technology or this tool. And Ben, you know more. And we brought that and said, what is it we really want to accomplish? What does this really mean to people? And how do we make it significant? So we get a very clear picture through this tool of where we sit today, meaning, where are we before the GPS kicks in and says turn left or turn right? This will give us a chance to go from here to wherever we want to be in life. And I truly believe that. And of course, we also had a conversation last week in a couple of sessions where we talked about balance, being in balance, out of balance, creatively out of balance. And this tool was always used as a balance wheel. I remember saying, we've got to get ourselves in a balance. And if we're out of alignment and whatever, we've got to, grow it into alignment. And the reality is I've come to understand that even differently. So
Yeah.
I think today, Ben, we're going to have some great discussions. And I trust we're going to take people down a path that will be extremely useful to each and every one who's on this call. Dive in, dig in, let's get real, let's get right. And let's be serious about where we are, because we have a chance to change everything in our life. Of course, it translates into what are we going to do for the second half of this year to make this what I'm referring and seeing everywhere, this post-COVID world.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of things you said, Don. A couple of things I want to hit on here. First, the whole concept of being in balance. Right? That's a really nice fairy tale that we've all told ourselves at one point in time. Like, we're going to have a balanced life. I can build a massive business. I can impact lots of people, and I can be the best husband or wife or son or daughter or father or mother. I can be all things to all people at all times. And the reality is you can't. And so life is not about getting into balance. You'll spend your entire existence, if that's what you're searching for, you'll spend your entire existence looking for that. What you and I know to be true, and we've been taught by mentors for years, is that it's not about being in balance. It's about being calculated out of balance. What I mean by that is strategically allowing some areas of life to get a little out of balance while we're focusing in others. But the key here, and this is why this tool is so important, the key is monitoring those things at all times so it doesn't get so far out of balance that the wheels start falling off, right? We're going to have seasons where we're redlining in some of these areas, and that's okay. We have to. We have to have out of balance. We have to be leaning in certain directions if we want to have movement, right? And growth only happens with movement. You're never going to become who you could become. Your business is never going to get to its fullest potential if you're staying in this little balance wheel. That's also called a comfort zone, right? So it's not about staying in balance. It's about calculating how we're going to be out of balance and monitoring it closely. One quick story there, Don. So a lot of people don't know, but I'm a pilot and air traffic controller. That's a very expensive piece of paper that's hanging over there on the wall that I've never professionally used because I didn't want to sit in a dark room in the base of a tower in Chicago, right? So I said no to that trajectory. However, what it taught me was when we were in flight school, they have these digital, about the size of your cell phone, these digital GPSs, everything's digital and touchscreen. Yet you also have all these analog gauges all over the front of the airplane, all over the dashboard. Now, the reason for that is they're a redundant backup. And what those analog gauges allow you to do is monitor at all times the different systems and components that allow you not to fall out of the sky. Right? So you're constantly scanning these gauges to see where we are, where are we running a little too hot, where are we going a little too fast, where's the pressure a little too high or low. But you're always scanning these things to see and to make sure you arrive at your destination. That's what this success wheel will do for you. These are the gauges that allow you to monitor the progress of growth and goal achievement and allow you to be a little out of balance in certain areas, but not go so far over the edge that plates come crashing down. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I want to say a couple things that came to mind as you did that. And I was also thinking how ironic it was if you saw a smile on my face. I was thinking that if people on this call were in our sessions last week, we were all in avatar form. So I was looking at their avatar and they were looking at ours. So this is what we actually look like. And the second thing is there may be people
I like
that
the
have
avatar
no idea.
better.
Are you talking about me?
No, I'm talking about Todd Foster. I like the avatar better.
That's so funny. Hey, you said something and you talked about this balance, and you used the word lean in, and that's a phrase that we use a lot these days. It's a term that came out of a book about leaning in to something that's really important to us, and we can't lean into everything, right? We can only lean into certain things. And I was reminded that last week I talked about the ballerina or the ballet dancer, let's say male or female, and when they're on their toe or their toes and they're in motion, if I'm sitting in the audience and I'm looking, Ben, it looks like they are completely still and enormously balanced. The reality is, let's walk right up to the foot and watch the micro movements that are constant, right? And that's the out of balance, out of balance, out of balance, but getting back into balance and through balance, right? And that is really that's a micro version of what really is happening in our lives. In our lives, it may play out over weeks, days, weeks, months, years even, right? But in their world, it has to happen in microseconds, nanoseconds. And I think that's really a great metaphor for what we're doing today is we want to help people figure out where they are, where they need to get out of balance creatively to get where they want to go, and to be able to come back and know that they're in charge, that they're in control of the life and this balance, counterbalance dance that they do through the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. And you shared on stage three quotes on personal growth and development from Jim Rohn that he taught you when you all got to work together. And my favorite was the one talking about the fact that you can become more, you can get more because you can become more, right? You're not stuck where you are. Right. So when we're intentional, I think that's the biggest key here. Using a tool like the success wheel, it's not common because it requires effort. And a lot of people are just drifting through the ocean of life without their sails up. And so they're going wherever the wind is pushing the boat. They're not strategically steering and directing where they choose to go. And this tool allows us to do that. So let's jump into the tool because I'm going to
say one more. I know we got a lot to go through. I'm going to say one more thing. So you brought up that Jim Rohn quote. I had no intention of going there, but since you did, I want to say this. Jim's quote, by the way, for anybody who didn't catch the whole thing, was you can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. And I've changed that along the way, Ben, and I want to say this because I think it applies very much to where we are and this wheel of success wheel, if you will. And that is the way I shifted that for myself was you can have more than you got when you remember who you are. And go back to the title slide for just 1 second. Let me make a point here. The other way. So you can have more than you've got when you remember who you are. What keeps us from where we are today and where we want to be? The barriers that we've built, the layers of belief that we've taken from other people, by the way, lack of belief, right? The minimal beliefs, the limiting beliefs, the you're not good enough, all that stuff. We were born into a place where I can climb trees, I can do anything, there's nothing I can't do. And then as life goes on, we're squashed by other people's ideas and all of that, and we're living through it. The title is breaking through those barriers that keep you stuck. So I wanted to make the point and come full circle on that, since you brought it up, that we're really about how do we get to the place where we're making new choices about who we are. And getting to that place isn't about a matter of necessarily becoming more. It's remembering who the heck we really are and how powerful we are. And that's what my intention is for the next 40 minutes or thereabouts.
Absolutely. And I see somebody, I'm not going to say a name, but I see somebody on the call that I cherish dearly. And this person I've worked with for a long time. There's a whole story about an email that he sent me way back in the day when I was calling one of his clients that expired, and he knows who I'm talking about. But my point is this: when he came into this business, he came out of a tough season, and he had a lot of these doubts and self-doubts and lack of belief. And I'm guaranteeing you, if you would have asked that person back then that he'd be where he is today, he would have laughed you out of the room. And yet we were at a course together a couple of weeks ago and hearing of the amazing blessings that he's enjoying right now. And as a result, how he's blessing others around him. I want to make the point that you're costing others opportunity. You're costing others blessing because you can't impact others at the appropriate level if you don't strategically take steps to grow yourself. And that's what we're talking about here today. So it's not just about you. It's about who else you're impacting, who else you're reaching out to and making an impact on. So this is the success wheel. Now, we're going to park here for a while, right? Because this is the crux of what we're talking about now.
This is the program. See you later.
Yeah, later. So here's what we know. Everybody that is on the call will get an emailed copy of this. So don't worry about like drawing it all out. Here's what I would choose for you to do. Is just listen first, and then we're gonna give you an exercise on a blank sheet of paper that you can do to work with us through this, because we really desire this to be practical and not just theoretical. So let's talk about the 30,000 foot flyover view, if you will, right? So on the outside ring, you're gonna see there's 5 main areas on the outside of the ring. So Don, purpose. Why are we here? Why was I created? Why was I placed here right now? What am I here to do? right? That's purpose. And that's
The
a
most
big
important
one.
days.
The company that you and I came from, it's called the big why. It doesn't matter what you call it, but it all comes back to purpose. Why am I here? What gets me out of bed in the morning? What gets me through the hard stuff, right? Darren Hardy is famous for saying in a book that I've read, I can't tell you how many times and recommended, but he flat out says, when you have a big enough why, it will pull you through anyhow. When your why is big enough, it will pull you through anyhow. So purpose is incredibly important, because what we know is success is incredibly boring. Success is incredibly boring because it's simply the repetition of the fundamentals. A lot of people, in my experience in coaching for a long time, Don, I look at these people and they get all excited when they see these people on a stage or on a webinar or whatever, and they've had great success and they aspire to go to the same place. They aspire to have the same success. The problem is they don't understand how boring that path really actually is, because the people that succeed at the highest level, they're not reinventing the wheel. They're not doing sexy, cool new things. They're doing the same boring things every day, day in and day out. And that's what leads to the success that they have. So we have to be really in tune with our purpose here. And I'm not going to belabor each one of these like this, I promise, but purpose is so important. Like, this is on the Monopoly board, like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. If you haven't figured out purpose, none of the rest of this is going to matter. Purpose is where this all begins. So if you don't know your purpose, and don't overthink it either. A lot of people, in my experience, think about the big why or their purpose, and they think it has to be this massive thing. Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complex, but you got to get in tune with what's the purpose. The next one is wellness. And what we know is wellness is a symptom. It's a result. Being healthy, or being skinny rather, is a result. Being overweight is a result. Being stressed is a result. Being at peace is a result. Everything is cause and effect. So your wellness is incredibly important. And just like the other 5, wellness absolutely is intertwined with the other areas of the success wheel. If you're not well, you understand that disease is dis-ease. Disease truly is a root of not being well, not having good wellness. That's where disease comes from. Our bodies were created to heal themselves and to be in tune and to be wonderful machines. Yet look at all the disease that's rampant in the world. A lot of that comes because we're not taking care of ourselves. And there's a couple of categories we'll talk about. The next one is relationship. Relationship's important. I believe we were created in God's image, and so we were created to be in relationship. Now, whatever your higher power is, that's up to you. But my point is, we were here, put here, created to have an innate desire to be in relationship with other people. So that's a big area we have to look at. The next one is social. We're going to talk more about social. And then the last one, notice the order we went in. This was intentional, not on accident. The last one is business. What we know is a lot of people jump at business first. They forget all the other 4 major areas. And what are the results? Lousy. Or they have a really good result for a short time. They hit a ceiling, they burn out, they crash and burn, and they never come back. Like, you've all seen people in your industry that were top performers at one point in time, and a lot of them aren't even in the industry anymore. It's because they went backwards. Your business is the last area of importance on this wheel for a reason. So Don, do you want to talk about the subcategories under each?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm glad you made that point, Ben, because this was very intentional when we built it out. Actually, the earliest models for it, to me, were just a haphazard bunch of things that we looked at and we go, okay, these are all important areas. We made this very intentional to say, get up in the morning and turn right towards purpose. And when you're clear about that, get your wellness taken care of, et cetera. But let's go to the micro parts here, because the parts that are inside of the purpose is spirituality, which is our connection to our higher source. And again, I'm not going to belabor that only to put my beliefs on anybody else, but I believe we are spiritual beings having a great physical experience if we want to have a great physical experience. And I do believe that that's one of the most important things in our life, is that connection is why we're here. That's the biggest part of purpose. And then of course, next to that is the growth and learning. That's the personal growth. That's the part where we develop ourselves, Ben. That's the parts you kind of alluded to right off the bat, right? We know where we want to go. Who do we have to be different from how we are today to get to that place? That's going to be the inside. So it all has to do with us. The second part is going to be this wellness category. And in that category, we've got the I got to put my glasses on to blow it up big enough to make sure I can see it.
I didn't call you
But
old.
the first comes the health and fitness part. You know, this morning my trainer and I meet, virtual trainer. I'm in Puerto Rico. He's in Ohio, and we have our meeting. The health and fitness part is a big deal. What you're putting into your body. You said it right. Disease is really the inflammation of our body, right? The food that we put in, the things that we do, the outer factors that impact that. Those are all part of how we're going to deal in the world. And by the way, when our health goes away, trust me, everything else becomes unimportant. So this is one of those things where, you know, we don't give it a lot of time and attention, especially if we're younger. We're like, I'm invincible. Doesn't matter what I do. You know, it's more about making money right now. It's like, that's not true. Be careful, because we've seen people have massive challenges. And when that happens, everything else shifts. And of course, the second part to that is the fun and recreation, which is, are we enjoying life? Are we also, making the enjoyment? In other words, is there a passion to our life? Very often it's there in that fun and recreation, or in this next part, which is under relationships, which is where we experience love. And again, you know, love being a high vibration. By the way, purple is a high vibration color. We put it in that, but love is that place where, you know, when we're in love, when we feel love, we feel loved, we give love. When it's not conditional caring, but real love that shows up, right? True relationship. You know, it's magnificent. It fills us. It gives so much to us. And so we're going to talk about that today. Where are you in that scale? And then of course, then comes the family and friends and the people that are in our lives, because we choose that. We are born into a family. And after we've been born into a family and we grow through that experience, whatever that's like, by the way, some harsh, mine wasn't, you know, an absolute gem. And, mom was awesome. Dad wasn't so hot. Tough relationships. I know people that have had far worse and far greater. But whatever that experience is, we've had that through our childhood. But at some point we become an adult and we start to say, who's the family that I now choose to be with, right? And we have a family of choice. And that's where we get to the fun and the interpretations and the greatness of how big do we want life to be, because we're no longer anchored to what was when we were children. We get to make new choices, new decisions. And then, you know, Ben, you talked about the social parts. We didn't spend much time on that, probably won't even today. And yet this has to do with the outer world. This has to do with once we climb outside of ourselves and we get to the environment and green environment, by the way, the environment and the community. What are we giving? Who are we handling and taking care of? What can we give to others? And how do we become all we can become, as you said, Ben, so that we now have the opportunity, the options, right? Many people say, well, I'm not really about taking care of myself. I don't need to do that. I'm taking care of the world. Listen, I hopped on a plane the other day coming back from Scottsdale, and the first thing, well, it wasn't the first words out of her mouth, but the flight attendant did go through her discourse. And one of the things she said is, when the bag drops down, put your own mask on first. We've got to take care of ourselves first so we can be more for others, which takes us through community and the environment we live in. And then, of course, as you said, Ben, last, certainly not least, but last is the effort called business. And in that, we've broken it into two places: our work, that which creates our income stream, generally speaking, at least early on, especially. And then, of course, it creates, a financial opportunity. And with that comes the question of, how are we handling our money, and what are we doing with our finances? And are we seeing ourselves as the glorious, abundant people that we could be? Or are we seeing ourselves in scarcity, that no matter how hard we work, we never have enough, because we have a mindset around that? So these are the areas, and I'm certainly happy to turn that loose and say any additions you want to add in. Those are the areas that when Ben and I sat down and said, what's really making up these big parts of our life, we felt these were the areas that were the most important. And we're going to go through this day with you and give you a chance to put these things into your context, into your life. Ben?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a couple things here. First, we like to throw this line up, and this is just a visual cue for all of us, right? The stuff on the right side of the line, we should shoot to have done before we get into the business side of the day, right? Before life happens to us, we should attempt to have the stuff on the right side, the purpose, the wellness, and a lot of the relationship stuff covered and invested in before we get on with the day. Right? Again, this comes back, and I don't know who said it. It's probably 14 people, and they've stole it from 13 others. But bottom line, they said, if you win the morning, you win the day. This is what we're talking about. And I'm not saying I know exactly what that should look like for you. But the point being, what are you focused on first in the morning? It sets the tone for the rest of your day, right? It will absolutely set that tone. Now one other thing, Dawn, you talked about it kind of comes down to the becoming, right? And we talked about that Jim Rohn quote, and I'm still always going to be jealous that you got to work directly with him. But my thought around that whole thing is this, that in this wheel, right? Like we talked about at the top of this call, the example of somebody seeing somebody ultra successful, they desire that success. The problem with most people's approach, and the reason that we've created a coaching company and we get paid to coach people for a long time, is that most people want to skip right from where they are to right to what that person has. And the problem with that is that you've not built up the disciplines in order to keep it. Think of it this way. We know that the majority, it's over 78% actually, but the majority of people who win the lottery lose all of the winnings within 2 years. Now, what I want you all to do is write that down. 78% lose all of the winnings within the first 2 years. And a lot of people say, well, that's crazy. Not me. I'd be different. I'm responsible. I wouldn't be the one that loses it. The problem with that, and I want you to hear this, if you didn't have the discipline to earn it, how in the world do you think you're going to have the discipline to keep it? What we're talking about here are disciplines, right? And so instead of wanting to jump right to the business and get to that success point, we have to take some steps backwards first. We have to slow down in order to speed up. We have to ask ourselves the question, who do I need to become so that I can do the things consistently? Remember that from the top of the call, the boring things, success is incredibly boring, but the millions are in the mundane. How do I become, who do I have to become through this process to be the person that consistently does the activities that successful person does in order that I might have the success they have? We want to shortcut this. We want to do the monopoly, fly around the board and get the get out of jail free card. The problem is success is never found on that path. Success is found by the process of starting with ourselves first, personal development, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So on your page or your piece of paper that you're taking notes on, don't worry. Again, we're going to send this success wheel to everybody that's on the call, so you'll have a copy of it. But for our purposes today, what I would challenge you to do is just on a piece of paper, on the left-hand side, just write down the 10 sub areas. So start with spirituality, work around the wheel. Go ahead really as fast as you can. Don't worry, I'm not going to have to read your writing, so it doesn't matter. Write as fast as you can, but you're going to write spirituality, growth and learning, like all the way around, but do them in that order. Health and fitness, fun and recreation, love, family and friends, environment, community, work, money, and finance. Now, this is the part of the call where we're going to get practical. This is the part of the call where you're going to actually do some work with this tool, because if all you've done so far is listen and then you're going to kind of check out, well, that's great. And you just avoided doing maybe something you should have been doing otherwise because you just wasted the rest of your time. We want this to be practical. So on your sheet, write those 10 areas. And when you're done in the chat box, just type in done, if you would, just so we know when the majority of the group has completed that task.
Look at that teacher's pet, Todd Foster. First guy out. Done. Of course I'm done. Check. Apparently, Todd, by landslide.
Well, we got a couple people that are in rooms with lots of people, so they kind of have a disadvantage because there's slow writers and fast writers, right? Okay, so I think the majority of people are there. So here's what we want to do. We're going to take each of these sections, and we've got 30 minutes left. We're going to spend the balance of our time, the majority of the balance of our time, going deep into each of these areas. Now, what we're going to challenge you to do is this. We're going to challenge you to, turn off your cell phone or silence it, remove all distraction, because again, the more you pour into this part of the exercise, the more benefit you're going to get from this. And we're going to start with spirituality. Now, we have a couple of questions, actually 3 pages worth. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we have questions for each area that we want to ask you. So first and foremost, let's talk about spirituality. So Don, I know you're looking at those questions too. We're going to ask you 3 questions per section just to get you thinking. And then you're going to rank yourself where you currently are on a scale of 0 to 10. Now, the way this works is 0 means it's a dumpster fire. This part of my life is absolutely horrible, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And 10 is I'm amazing. Now, if anybody gets 10 on any of these, I would question the reality of that. However, it's your success wheel, not mine.
Yeah, and if you hear, if you say you're a 10 and you hear like angels, singing, then you're probably a 10, right? It's probably true. But there's an excellent chance that it's maybe a slightly overrated version. So be mindful. Don't be hard on yourself. Be as realistic as you possibly can. We just want to find out where you are today.
Absolutely. All right, so let's start with spirituality. Now, before you rank yourself, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So, Don, I'll grab the first one if you want to grab the second. Here's the first one. What do you aspire to in this area? So for spirituality, what's your ideal? What would be ideal? Again, we can't know where we are without understanding the whole process, the whole path, right? So what does spirituality mean to you? And this, you don't have to share with me, but this is what I'd be writing down. What does it mean to you? And what would winning in this section or this part of your life look like?
Yeah, and this is the context from which we want you to rate yourself, meaning this is kind of just the clarity around how do you see it? What's the gap between where you are and what's missing? What's missing? What's not present that you wish was better, see better, visualize better, yet it's not happening right now?
And then the last one, how do you think God, whatever that is for you, how do you think God wants to meet you or relate to you? Now, this kind of goes with health and fitness. I'm going to buy you some time as you're writing that down. But I can't remember who said it to me, but it was really profound. They said if you're a religious person, a spiritual person, if you have a belief system in that way, that a lot of people spend a lot of time praying. The only challenge is they don't spend a lot of time listening. Communication needs to be two ways. We should listen more than we speak. So that's a component of spirituality as well.
You've heard me, Ben, talk about that is that, prayer and meditation, they're part of the same conversation. The difference is, to me, prayer is talking and the meditation is letting it come in, listening. And very often we're talking, going, hey, I need help. Hey, talk to me. I want really, and we're getting all the downloads, but we're not hearing it. We're not hearing it. We're not allowing the space.
Absolutely. All right. So right now, before we move to the next one, spirituality, based on where you are today, rank yourself on a scale of 0 to 10 and just write it on your paper next to the spirituality header. Okay. All right. Let's move on to growth and learning, Don. So growth and learning, same scale for all of these, growth and learning. Let's do it backwards a little bit because I think you have the context now. So rank yourself right now based on what you believe growth and learning. Now, under the context of purpose, growth and learning means your own growth. What are you learning? Who are you becoming? Right? How are you doing in that area of your life in the process of becoming the person that you were created to be, that you need to be in order to get the level of success you desire? Right? So rank yourself 0 to 10.
I want to say that slightly differently and say, how are you being and who are you being, right? That's what I'd really like you to think about. How are you showing up and being in your life right now?
And for some of the people on this call, I see a couple of them, and they are running organizations. I know a number of these people personally. Here's the Maxwell law that applies here. As a leader of an organization, I don't care if you believe you're a leader or not. That's irrelevant. You are, right? We're all leaders. It's just some of us do it intentionally. Okay. So as a leader of an organization, when you have a business that has other people, your growth and learning becomes the ceiling on the organization. He calls it the law of the lid. The people in your organization can never get past your ceiling. And so as a leader, that's part of the tremendous responsibility that you take on in leading other people, is that if you're not constantly working to stay ahead of them and pulling them along the path with you, essentially creating a leadership vacuum and encouraging their growth at the same time, if you get complacent, you put a ceiling on their achievements. So growth and learning is an incredibly important component here. So rank yourself 0 to 10, growth and learning. Here's a couple of questions just to give you context to think about. So what's the cutting edge for you right now in your personal growth?
What's one new skill that would make all the difference right now in reaching your dreams, your goals, those things that you've declared as being so important in your life? What skills or attributes, or areas of expertise that have not been present, do you want to develop this year?
And that's a big one. Notice it's not which ones, it's what one area. You understand this? It's all about making choices. We have to say no to a lot of good things in order to say yes to one great thing. So what's
Absolutely.
the one area in this part of your wheel of life that if you just focus there, if you just gain that skill set or you poured into learning in that area, it would spill over into all of the rest, right? Identify that one for you. That's an incredibly important one. All right, let's do the next one. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. Health and fitness. Let's go.
Health and fitness, again, 0 to 10. Where you find yourself right now? If you were giving yourself advice, if you were coaching yourself, be realistic. Where is your health and fitness 0 to 10? So a couple of questions to give you context. How's your health? Mind you, it doesn't have to mean, are you overweight or underweight? There's a lot of people that are at normal weight and they're incredibly unhealthy. So this is not just about weight. I want you to make sure you understand that.
Great distinction, because I know people that are extremely fit who are not healthy at all.
This is a big component.
It is a major. Our energy that we're going to run everything on this wheel in our life, everything that's going to run it runs out of the battery called you. So this is a big deal.
Yeah, it's always amazed me, Don, people that are incredibly talented, right? And we're going to have another one of these calls. We're going to do these monthly, by the way, but we're going to have another one of these calls talking about some of the components of the E-Myth from Michael Gerber. But it always amazes me. He talks about the technician, and these people are really good in one thing, all right? And it's not a minimization. They're really good in an area. They're really good at a specialty. Yet they can be terrible entrepreneurs. He talks also in the book about the fact that these people are incredible in this area, but they don't take care of themselves in the other. And it's like driving your car for 100,000 miles, never getting the oil changed.
Never.
You can't expect the car to work if you don't take care of it. Your body's the exact same way. So here's a question around health and fitness that cuts a lot of people to the core. I don't like it either, but it's important. Here we go. What are you allowing or tolerating in the area of health and fitness? What are you allowing or tolerating right now? Not making a choice is a choice. So what are you allowing or tolerating in the area of health and fitness?
A great term. Allowing is one of those passive places where we just accept what happens. And that's where we're in the danger zone. What are you allowing?
Yeah, and Todd Vosser just sent a message saying your mental health and mental fitness are also very important. 100%. This isn't just physical body. Your brain, your mental health is a part of that. There's a component of that as well, right?
And
so these
then
are
if we think about this, we think about this. What would your improved health, improved level of activity mean to your overall success and your success in business? Like, is there any correlation for you? And so again, rate yourself.
Absolutely. All right. Let's do fun and recreation.
Let's do that. I'll see you later.
Now, fun and recreation. Here's the notes we took when we planned this about this section. It's your commitment to regular and consistent experiences solely for the purpose of fulfillment and fun. A lot of us go a million miles an hour in business, and then we look back and we're like, oh, I haven't taken a vacation in 4 years. I haven't seen the sunrise or sunset in 13 years. Like it's all at an expense. It's all a cost, right? So fun and recreation, if it's not intentionally built into your life, if it's not finding its way into your calendar, it won't exist. It won't happen. So rate yourself right now. And my favorite one to do with coaching clients in this one, if they tell me, oh, I'm really fun, I'm like, that's great. What would your spouse rate you on in terms of fun and recreation? Because I can call them and I can get a real rating here. So how would you rate yourself in terms of fun and recreation and how you're working that into your business? Another question here, and this is a Maxwell one as well, is when's the last time you did something for the first time?
Love that question. One of my favorites.
I'll give you an example. Like I'm always, my wife gives me a hard time. It's not bad, but she gives me a hard time because my boys and I are always doing something new. I just bought a forge because we are watching Mountain Men and they want to learn how to blacksmith. And I'm like, that sounds cool. Like, when's the last time you did something for the first time? Like, I'm not going to be amazing at blacksmithing. but I'm going to have a heck of a good time making memories with my kids and learning a new skill set and learning how something works just by doing it. Like, when's the last time you did something for the first time? Let's look at love next. And you're the love doctor, Don, so I'm going to let you take this one.
Oh yeah, totally the love doctor. Here we go. Hey, this has to do, of course, with our interaction first with self and then with others, right? From this place of wholeness in relationship, and then to the external, to other people in our world, and maybe to that one person. We're talking about love. And again, we've got love, family, and friends here. So all of that. But I want you to think about the love, because, you know, when do you know or feel you're loved? When do you internalize, I'm feeling loved? Where does love exist in your life right now? Around whom? Around how many? You know, what does love mean to you? What does it mean to you to be loved, to feel love, to love? How do you choose to share or show that to others? These are the elements that are going to help you digest. So where would you rank yourself on a scale of 0 to 10? 0 not being too connected, 10 being life is lovely.
Don, on that one, I've got a client right now that we just had this conversation a week and a half ago. And we had the conversation like specifically around love. And it was this person, you know, it was victim mindset. And I love this person, so I'm not disparaging them, but we've all been here before. So I'm talking to myself too. It was this very much, woe is me, nobody loves me, I can't catch a break. And so we inspected the love thing. And of course, nothing's easy, and we're all a result of our environment, which is a whole nother class that we do. But my point is, you can't receive what you aren't giving away. Maxwell says that we're to be rivers, not reservoirs. We shouldn't just take in and hold. We should take in and give freely out. And so if you're not experiencing love at a significant level in your life, not always, but I would challenge you that a lot of time, you got to really look at how much are you giving out, how much are you loving other people, because you get in return what you give.
It's a cycle like this. It's the energy that's flowing like this, Ben, right?
Absolutely. All right, let's do family and friends. And you guys are still rating yourself on each of these. We're just giving you some context and moving you through the process. So 0 to 10 on love. Family and friends. This is a big one. This doesn't mean blood family necessarily. I know some people, like Dawn and I've talked about before, some people don't have blood family. Maybe people have passed away, or it's toxic and you've distanced yourself. It doesn't mean that's the only version of family, right? You can choose family as well. So
family. Right.
This is wide reaching, but family and friends. 0 to 10. How do you rate yourself? How are you showing up? How are you being right now in this area of family and friends? Now, a couple questions here for context. What's best about your family life? There's a reason we're asking these questions, right? So I trust you're digesting these. What's best about your family life? What would you like to see change?
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, Ben, stepped right on you.
Take the next one.
So yeah, think about painting a picture of what a great family life looks like from your perspective, right? Paint that picture so you know where you are in relation to that. And then what are you committed to in this particular area? This is a biggie, as Ben said. So what are you committed to related to family? And again, family of origin, family you've married into, and family of choice, right? Those families. What's your commitment?
Love it. And you're going to rate yourself 0 to 10 there. Now, this next one, environment. This does not mean the rainforest. What we're talking about here is your surroundings, meaning the world you find yourself in. There was also a famous quote by a guy you used to work with about these 5 people. Don, you want to share that one really quick? Just in case somebody hasn't heard it.
Jim Rohn's the 5 people that you're around.
Absolutely.
And what he said basically was, listen, you're going to be the composite of the 5 people that you hang around the most. So there's an environment that's not the outdoor environment, that too. We're talking about your environment. Who are you hanging around? Tony and Robbins and I talked about it as proximity it's proximity, right? Who are we around? We moved to Puerto Rico, and there's a bunch of amazing people here. Like, they're on an adventure, and they're business people, and they've got high-minded ideas, and that environment. We knew we were moving into a place of high potency. So what's your environment? The people you hang around, do they give you energy, or they energy sucks? Do they take from you?
And that one's so critically important. What you're going to find, if you haven't already in life, what you're going to find is that no truer words have ever been spoken than that Rohn quote. Because here's what we know. We know that your checkbook balance, not that anybody has checkbooks anymore, but your balance in your bank account, we know that that likely will be right around the same level as the people you spend the most time with. Your possibility thinking will be right around the same level as the people you spend the most time with. Now, don't send emails into success coaching and saying that we ruined your life. We're not saying get rid of people in your life. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is be mindful of where you're investing time, energy, and effort, and with whom. It doesn't mean you cut people out of your world. It means you need to be more strategic maybe about who you're spending time in your world with.
Hey, Greg is answering a question about, or asking a question about, where do we find new people to associate with to move up? And I'm going to say a couple things. One is stay close to what we're building. You can be a coaching client, you may choose not to, but we're building an environment. We're building a space where people can come and get around people of like-mindedness and really bigger thinkers. And of course, you know, I mean, for us, it was move. I mean, we had a luxurious life, a wonderful life in Austin, Texas. This was a move of a different sort to get around even more. So be seeking, Greg, be looking for, you know, where are there spaces where people are hanging out? And of course, there's at a base level, right? There's meetups and groups. And today it's so much easier to connect than ever before if you allow yourself to. So again, if you need help on that, you reach out. We'll make sure that we give you some support on that. And I love what Katie just said. I start with disassociation, distancing myself. Sometimes to find new, you know, you can't get the new car until you get the old one out of the garage. Sometimes we need to just shift from the people we've been hanging around, and we start to find ourselves in a place where we're open to new possibilities, who might not have been a fit for where and who we were hanging with before.
Though I love this one. Maxwell shared with me, we were in Florida, and I had the opportunity to spend some time in a very small, intimate group with them. And we were talking about this, and this was probably 8 years ago. It was a long time ago in my journey. And he said something I'll never forget. And I've heard it said before, but it's like one of those things, like when you're in church and the pastor's talking, you're like, dang it, why are you talking directly? Like he was having that conversation with me, right? And he said this, he said, if you find yourself to be the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
In the wrong room.
It doesn't mean that the room is bad. It doesn't mean the people that are there are bad. But if you find that you are the smartest person in the room, you got to get up and find a new room, because you will never be stretched past that point, right? And so you find people that are doing things bigger, having more of an impact, have the wheel of life that looks like something you want, right? That you have desire components, or you admire components of how they're showing up and what they're doing. In my mind, Greg, that's how you go find those people. You just start really observing. You get intentional about looking and observing at not only what people say, but what's the reality of their life? How are they actually showing up? Because talk is cheap. I just posted on that yesterday on my Instagram, right? Talk is cheap. I don't care what you say. I want to see over time what you actually do.
Who let the dogs out? Hey, Ben, let me say one more piece about that, if I didn't just get distracted out of the idea with my dog. Go ahead, Ben. That's all you.
All right, we'll come back to your idea. Here's the next one, community. Now, community is important. Again, we're not going to spend a ton of time, but what we're really intending here is your community involvement, right? Now, I see Connor on here, and I know Connor is really involved through multiple nonprofits in town, lots of give back. That's what we're talking about here, right? Now, again, if we go too far down that rabbit hole or any of the other parts of the wheel of life, it can pull us out of balance. So it's all about finding that counterbalance. But community here in this sense is, how plugged into your community are you? How well are you plugged in and giving back and making an impact? Because this life is short. I just saw on Facebook that a really good friend of mine in the town next door just passed away, and she was younger than me, and she had terminal cancer. right? Life is short. So we go through life thinking it's all about me and what I want and what I need. That's not a fulfilling life. And you find people that are extremely wealthy get to the end of their world, they're surrounded by nobody and they're completely miserable because money doesn't change us. It just reveals more of who we are. So this has to be bigger than just me. So community is, what kind of a steward of my community am I being? How am I using my giftedness to impact those around me, right? So that can be a lot of different ways, but rate yourself there, 0 to 10. How are you showing up in that sense of community? You want to tackle work, Don?
Yeah, and Ben, this is, of course, where this is a fairly natural. This is for most of the people on this line. This is probably a very comfortable place, right? Going to work. And I feel good about my work, and I'm really excited about my work, and I'm really pumped up about building something. So again, notice the comfort zone you have around this and some of the other things we've talked about, how familiar or not familiar those are, how familiar this one might be. I want to ask you a couple of questions so you really rank yourself in this and be really specific about this. What makes you satisfied or dissatisfied with your current work? And what is your current career path line up for? And what are the expectations of this path? Like if I keep doing what I'm doing, what's the expected outcome? What's most important to you in your work? Now, keep in mind, we're not talking about you have a job. Even if you own a business, you have a job you do. This goes back to some of the things Ben was talking about early, being the tactician. I'm a good whatever I am, a good realtor. I see a couple of realtors I know at least. I don't know what everybody else does, but I'm a good realtor. But am I good at business? That's a different story, right? I'm talking about the work itself, the job itself. What's most important to you in a job? And how does your current job supply that for you? Is it really giving to you? Are you loving the work you're part of? Because what we also know is if you really love what you do, then you're really, you've never had a day of work because it's really a pleasure. I enjoy, I get value from, I love giving in this way. It's really exciting for me. And here's the real question. What needs to change? If anything in there, what needs to change to make it fulfilling, to make it big, to make it, energize you, to give you the life that you want, whether that's, again, the amount of money, the amount of fulfillment, all of that. What needs to change? And then rank yourself from 0 to 10. Where would you put yourself?
Love that. And then our last component, last section of the wheel before we start tying this all together as we're coming to the end of our time, money and finance. And again, we talked about it. This is not the first place to go. However, this is the first place a lot of people go. You understand that no matter what goals you set in money and finance, if you don't have the other disciplines in place, either A, you're not going to make it, or B, you won't keep it, right? So money and finance, how are you not only in terms of making money, generating income to fund the life that you desire to have, but how good of a steward are you of the money that you have and that you receive? Right. Because you can be a great money generator and, like a lot of top real estate agents, be broke at the end of every year, right? And that's a problem. Like, why go through the grind and the hustle and all the blood, sweat, and tears if you have nothing to show for it? So it's not just about how do I make it, it's about what kind of a steward am I of it, and how do I get to the point where money makes money? And Don, we have a whole nother call on this, the financial thermostat and the mindset around money that we're going to be doing.
I want to say one thing though, really, really quickly. Go ahead and write down that number, guys. Go ahead and rate yourself. I'd like you to rate yourself. And then I want you to really, so get the number 0 to 10, give yourself a number. Where are you compared to what you expected? Maybe even at the age you are you, where are you income wise, savings wise, cash, passive cash flows wise? I mean, really rank yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. And then I want to ask the question, because this is the most important question you're going to get, and that is, what leads you to rate yourself that? Like, that's where you're going to show yourself the missing components. What really gives you that impression? Why is that the grade that you're giving yourself when you look at this scale? And then from there, it starts to reveal a whole bunch of stuff that's missing. And that's what we're looking for, Ben. That's actually the gap that we want to find today.
Absolutely. So again, those that jumped on a little bit later, here's what we know. You're going to all be emailed a copy of the success wheel. So our intention is for you is take these ratings we've done through the call so far, print off this success wheel and you actually shade in up to the rating for each section. Now, the reason for this is I want you to think about this. When you go through that exercise and you do that part of the process, I want you to think about this wheel. We take it out and we bolt it on your car. And you got to ask yourself, based on the shape of this wheel, how far down the road could I get? And for most of us, again, no such thing as a perfectly balanced wheel. For most of us, it's going to be like having a boot on our car when we don't pay a parking ticket, right? We're not going very far.
Ben, you're not seeing me. This is that's my wheel.
Oh, now I'm seeing you. Okay. Yeah. That for most of us, right? Like, welcome to being human. Welcome to the human experience. Don and I's wheels are just as lumpy as yours probably are too. So it's not a question of a competition of how round is my wheel. The question we want you to reflect on, and again, this call was intended to give you insight. Now, the real work begins after this call, and this is where you really go into reflection and spend some time looking at this, coming up with your plan. Because here's what we want you to do, and go ahead right now. We've got just a few minutes left. Look on your sheet, and I want you to find the one or two max, the one or two areas that were the lowest scored, meaning the one or two areas where you gave yourself the lowest ranking. When you have that done, really, really quick, fast fingers, really, really quick, type in the chat box, done. When you have your one or two areas identified that are the lowest out of all of them. Perfect. All right, so here's what we know, Don. We know that now comes the time to formulate a plan. We know where we are. We've started to identify the gap, which is what you're talking about, and that's where all great transformation begins, is when we have clarity over where we are, what the gap is. Now we can set the course for how do we bridge that gap? How do we become intentional in a couple key areas to bridge the gap? Now, here's the beauty of this wheel in my mind. The beauty of this wheel is this is something you can look at and should look at least a weekly basis. Just like the gauges, the analog gauges in those planes that I was talking about, you're monitoring with this tool in real time, because you're going to see, as you're intentionally focused on those one or two areas that were low rated, you're going to see improvement there if you're being intentional about it. And at the same time, you may simultaneously see a couple of areas where it's going down one or two, right? Again, you're shifting focus, you're counterbalancing, and that's okay. The key is knowing which ones we're going to tackle first. Now, we have a plan to tackle how to do that. We'll do that on a follow-up call, but you all have heard of a SMART goal. And so what we want to challenge you to do, it's specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So for those 1 to 2 areas that you want to have improvement on, you really need to take time. If you want this to be more than just an hour call looking at Dawn and I's pretty faces, you have to take intentional action and set SMART goals for both of those areas. Specifically, what do you want to improve? Not just I want to make more money, how much and by when. Specific, realistic, actionable. You have to have control over it. It can't just be like, Jesus, take the wheel. Like, no, you have to have control over the outcome. Actionable. Realistic. If you made $30 this year, making $1 million next year is probably not realistic, right? So make sure it's realistic. It should stretch you, but make sure it's realistic. And T is time bound, because a goal without a deadline is just a dream. You have to give a line in the sand. I'm going to do this by here, because you understand at that point, this is simple. We just work backwards off of that and figure out, okay, if I'm going to be here by this point in time, again, who do I have to become in order to do the actions necessary consistently that get me there?
So the gap, Ben, is really what we're aiming for today. What you want to get to is what's missing. How do I want to fill that? And by the way, do you need help? Do you need help on that? And we'll talk about how to get that help. But the reality is today is about figuring out, where are you? The GPS doesn't work unless we know where we are. This gives you a real good sense of where you are in relation to the areas that are most important for you. And by the way, you're the one making the decision. It's not about us. It's not about what Ben wants for you. It's not about my vision for you. It's about your vision for you.
Absolutely. Now, Don, we're at the end of our time.
We are at the bottom of the hour.
We have one thing we wanted to tell everybody about for 30 seconds. We have a great group coaching course coming up. It's 8 weeks, under $300, conversations that convert. It's how to get a higher conversion rate, how to get people to say yes more. We have a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming who's teaching this. It's incredible content. That's coming up. Talk to us if you want more information. Scan the QR code. And then also, if you are needing a coach, wanting a coach, obviously we believe in coaching. If you can go further faster with somebody else alongside of you, nobody succeeds alone. We have coaching options for you as well. But bottom line, here's what I want you to know. We want you to know first, we're grateful that you're on with us today. We want to also let you know that we're going to do a minimum of one of these calls per month. So if you've not connected with Dawn, Hobbs, and myself on social media, please do so today, because that's where we're going to be rolling out the announcements for dates and times for subsequent calls. We have a ton of stuff planned. It all springs off of here, talking about your financial thermostat, your mindset around money, like practical, real stuff that are a lot of the barriers for people. We're going to dive into those over the course of the next few months. The webinars, of course, will be absolutely free, and we'd love to have you and have you bring a friend. So Dawn, anything we're missing, I'll let you have the final word here.
Well, I don't know if I'll be the final word. I may toss it back to you, but I will say this. I was thinking about the course that's coming up that you were talking about. And that one, I think about that course, and when consultations that convert, it's really about the conversations and some of the technique, but the process of learning, the NLP process of learning that is going to change. And I was thinking about the wheel of life, almost every area of life. So you want to get bigger and better. This is a place where you're going to learn about yourself and how to create change, and the conversations and communications, both internal and then external, to make that happen. And of course, Ben, I would be thrilled to be able to help people through the growth process. And the coaching process to me is this is the third coaching company that I've built or helped build. And I will say this, that I believe that the coaching relationship is one that most people don't understand. And when they get it, they're like, I don't know how I lived without it my whole life, because it is the one thing that moved me faster towards what I want than anything I've ever done before. So if we can help in any way, shape, or form, please let us know what that looks like. Ben and I are both of us have devoted our lives to this. It's been 40 years for me of absolutely wanting to help people transform and see the potential of what they've got, but then to act on it and create the life that's big in their own lives and for those around them. So Ben, I'll toss it back to you. I'll say adios and goodbye to everybody. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. Again, connect with us on social. That way you'll know about the next call. Now, here's the most important part. Get off your duff and go do something with what you learned today. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Have a great rest of your day.